Hello, and welcome to another edition of No Lights Paranormal, where three nerdy paranormal investigators sit down and discuss spooky stories from the web. My name is Joe, the lead investigator.
My name is Teresa, and I am the researcher.
My name is Alex. I am the Baba Yaga enthusiast and equipment setter-upper.
That he is.
All of the above. He's guilty. Mm-hmm.
That just figured out how to work the DPS on his mouse.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to do that.
All right.
It was super.
So, today is the roundtable.
Roundtable.
Yeah. So,
I love it.
We're at
Spooky
table,
news.
quasi-round.
It is
Awesome.
ovular. That's okay. Today is the ovular table. My dog's in there having a little fit.
Something.
Anyway.
He's got the tism. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, guys, we wanted to just, kick the last of this week off with some fun, folktale-y kind of stuff. We are looking at Native American folklore, legends, icky, all that good stuff.
First of all, spooky news.
No, we don't do spooky news on the round table.
We've always done spooky news.
Aww.
Way to screw up the curve.
All right, no, we're not doing spooky news today.
Nope, you missed
We're
your
out.
shot.
Okay. You
Back to the topic.
No. We'll do
Nope,
spooky news.
we're
Okay,
not
it's
doing
okay.
spooky news.
I
You
actually
already-
thought you guys didn't like to do spooky
Nope,
news
too late.
You missed
on
it.
the round table.
You missed it.
Too
Sorry
late.
for all you spooky news fans out there. We're not going to get it because
I really did think you guys didn't care for the spooky news on the round table.
No.
Yeah, it's fine. Let's go.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. So I personally decided to cover a couple of different things, origins of different types of critters and things like that. And I know that you guys probably found your own happiness.
No.
No, you're just going to wing it?
I didn't know we were looking up until right before we started recording.
So just so everybody knows, we had originally planned to do a totally different story today, and that got a little bit sidelined. So we were kind of scraping the barrel for the story this week. But it's okay. It's okay. We got this. We are fixing to go on an investigation here soon. We got invited to go to one that looks like it's going to be a whole lot of history, a whole lot of fun, which you guys know, of course, is right up my alley. We are going to be taking mentor Ken Summers along with us. So it should be a blast. And at first, they wanted to discuss it and, kind of get a little bit of word out there about the history and things like that. But I think that their minds have changed a little bit because putting something on a podcast where a lot of paranormal enthusiasts listen obviously makes people want to go investigate. And due to the focus on the historical nature as opposed to the paranormal nature of the place, they would prefer not to have people, banging down their door to investigate.
Yeah.
So we've decided not to go that route.
So in other words, we had to scrounge around and pick a topic.
Right.
Which we did. And I was the only one who didn't look anything up. So
Well, that's
Yes,
okay.
I'm
That's
winging
okay.
it.
I love it. I'm sure you got a lot of good stories to tell about the stuff that we've looked up, so it's fine.
It's a round table. It's not supposed to be story-driven. It's supposed to be discussion-driven.
So, do you have a topic you want to start off with in this overbroad big picture?
I thought you already had, 4 that you already mentioned.
Oh, I have
but
20, seriously. All right, cool. Well, that's all right. Then I am going to start off with the origin of the Wendigo.
12 years, people. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. As we all know, the Wendigo is a very powerful figure in North American folklore, particularly among the Algonquin-speaking tribes, which were like the Cree, the Ojibwe, the Algonquin themselves. The story of the Wendigo obviously has evolved over time, influences by a lot of different cultural changes in society, the influence of the European settlers in the Americas. But I'm going to go over a timeline of the Wendigo's origin and notable stories that were associated with it. And then we're going to look into some Native American legends of other varieties and their origins as well. I have a lot of fun with it personally. So, in the pre-colonial era, the origins of the Wendigo are traced back to pre-colonial traditions of the Algonquin-speaking peoples who lived in the northeastern parts of North America, including the Great Lakes region
And Canada.
and the northern forests of Canada and the U.S. Canada, I love that. Canada and the U.S. How many Canadian listeners do we even have, I wonder? Do you know?
I did.
Is it a lot?
I don't know.
Oh.
I was just saying a lot so we can...
Well,
excuse me, guys.
Canada, thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to talk a little bit about your neck of the woods as well as our neck of the woods up here. As you all know, we are in Ohio. So, kind of happened in our neck of the woods as well. So, Wendigo, an Algonquin tradition, which it's had various different spellings. Some people are like W-N, W-E-N-D-I-G-O, W-I-N-D-I-G-O, W-I-I-N-D-I-G-O-O.
And Dingo was his name.
Exactly. There's been lots of different spellings. The idea, though, is that this is a malevolent spirit. Sometimes it's described as a creature as opposed to a spirit. And sometimes it's described as a human who has turned into a monster, a creature of some sort. In lore, the Wendigo is associated with cannibalism, greed, and basically just an insatiable hunger for human flesh. Nasty critters. It's often described as a very, very gaunt, emaciated sort of creature with glowing eyes, a long, sharp tongue, and a body that's often very skeletal and a little bit decomposed. You can see bones, you can see muscle. The most notable trait is that, of course, it has an insatiable hunger for human flesh. Some variations of the story suggest that the Wendigo actually grows larger the more it eats, and then needs to eat more the larger it is, which just creates this endless cycle of bad. The Wendigo is often used as a symbol of the dangers of selfishness or greed or the consequences of losing humanity. Also, it's said to represent the fear that Native Americans had during very, very harsh winters in, the northern forest regions where food would obviously become extraordinarily scarce in those times of year. In one of the most enduring parts of the Wendigo lore is its connection to an actual medical condition called Wendigo psychosis. This is where a person actually gets obsessed with the idea of cannibalism and the desire to eat human flesh. This is a very, very real thing. Some people consider this a curse to become a Wendigo, as if they've resorted to cannibalism during times of extreme starvation or particularly harsh winters. And others in modern times know of this Wendigo psychosis as a legitimate medical condition, a psychological condition. Historical accounts are really interesting. So there's one pretty specific account. Back in 1661, there was a man who was from the Cree tribe. He was named Swift Runner. Individuals thought that he became a Wendigo due to him engaging in cannibalism. He was convicted of killing and eating his entire family during a winter famine. What had happened was they went up to basically a winter hunting ground. They set up their teepees, their tents, their lodging, got everything needed that they set up. It was his wife. They had, I believe, 5, maybe 6 children. And then his brother and his mother had gone along as well. I believe it was his brother and mother who disappeared first. They had gone out on a solo trip looking for big game to obviously catch and kill and bring home. And then slowly, one by one, his children started dying. And when he was arrested, he came up with this story that after his mother and brother went off to go hunting and disappeared, that starvation set in. They didn't have enough to feed the entire family, especially with so many children. And he said that one by one, each of them just got sicker and sicker and sicker. The small baby was the first to pass on, and then his children just sort of in succession kept dying, and then his wife passed away as well. The really interesting part about his story that people noted, though, especially the lawmakers at the time noted, he looked plump and round and very well fed. He did not look like a man who had been in the northern woods starving to death for months and months. He looked totally fine, totally healthy. So they put him through a lot. Some of it was, just plain torture, which they didn't care about for a Native American at the time. They were perfectly happy to torture him. And eventually, the story came out that he had one by one actually murdered every single one of them. And in the spring, when it thawed, law enforcement went up, studied the campsite, and actually found bones of every single one of his family members with human teeth marks gnawed into the bones. So it was a very, very nasty, gruesome thing.
Right.
As the European settlers arrived in North America, they actually brought their very own ideas of monsters and folklore. And over time, the stories of the Wendigo that had already existed in the Americas were sort of adapted and influenced by the European concepts of, the more monstrous creatures that existed there, leading to an even more terrifying, exaggerated version of the Wendigo. So, it just became bigger and stronger and, had big old antlers and, crazy stuff like that.
Right.
The Swift Runner incident was interesting because this was actually in 1878. So it was, we're very close to the 1800s. We're very close to the place where Native Americans and European Americans who came here kind of started integrating, and things were kind of starting to settle down a little bit, and people were starting to get back into, regular routines of, it's perfectly okay to live side by side. This was, once the Americans had kind of forced the natives to not be on their own lands anymore, that kind of thing. So it was a huge thing in the news because everyone was like, oh my God, look at this, this Native American man who, savages, blah, eating his family. Like it was a big deal. He was tried, he was found guilty, and he was in fact executed. There was another story about a man by the name of Jack Fiddler. He was actually
familiar.
Yeah. He was actually a shaman in the Cree Nation. And along with his brother, he became very, very famous for allegedly killing Wendigos in the late 19th and early 20th century. He was considered to be a Wendigo killer, which was someone who could completely identify and stop the Wendigo spirit from spreading from one human to another. According to Fiddler, he had killed several people who had been turned into Wendigos, preventing them from terrorizing local communities. However, when Canadian authorities arrested him in 1907 for killing a man who he accused of being a Wendigo, the case raised quite a bit of questions about the intersection of Indigenous beliefs versus colonial law. He was charged and found guilty of murder and later passed away in the custody of Canadian authorities.
He opted out.
He did in fact opt out. But yes, to be politically correct, it simply stated that he passed away in custody. So that to me led into the discussion of Native American beliefs versus, what settlers brought here and all kinds of other cultures brought here, and where it all sort of intersected and where it all sort of adapted and changed and developed into what they are today versus what they were in, 1800, 1900. And I just think it's really interesting. It's almost like playing the telephone game.
Yeah.
Well, here's an interesting fact that you either missed or just forgot to mention regarding that story about Fiddler. And most importantly, this portion deals with his brother.
Mm-hmm.
His brother did pass away also in jail. Doesn't say how. However, he was pardoned posthumously.
Oh, really?
So they kind of I don't know the exact details of it and what caused him to be pardoned, but maybe it has something to do with that cultural belief thing where it's like,
he was possessed, not his fault.
What?
He was possessed, not his fault, kind of thing.
No, more like this is their culture. This is what they believe. How can we punish them for something that's so deeply rooted in their law?
It's to me, it's kind of like how Native American have their own land or their own laws on their own reservations.
It's true. Yeah.
And I say we, but the U.S. government can't actually enforce anything on them.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, reservations are 100% governed by the tribe that owns it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you were done.
No,
you mentioned about it being a spirit that can possess people.
Some people do believe that, yeah.
Well, remember that, I can't remember what the name of the movie was. It's a long time, like early 2000s, about that plane crash. The plane crashed in like the mountains or something like that. I think in the Andes or something. And it was like a rugby team.
Oh,
and they ate people.
I know what you're talking.
There's been studies on there that maybe they had the Wendigo spirit in them.
Really?
That's why they started eating people. Not for survival, but because one person kind of went crazy a little bit. So,
whether
or not that's true, I have no idea, but
here's where I get into a little bit of scientific nerddom that I do know. A very high likelihood, and I don't know whether it's like one bite or you eat a whole person or 3 people, but a very typical side effect from that is something called prion disease.
Yeah.
Which, what's the word I'm looking for? Which creates neurodegeneration. It basically literally rots your brain. It's brain rot.
Like eating human flesh causes this?
Eating human flesh, it literally will cause, it's a side effect, basically. Yep. It will cause prion disease, which literally eats your brain. Similar to the 1980s when mad cow disease was a thing. It was literally because cows were eating other cows.
Yeah.
Which is weird to me.
But they also are prone to prion disease. So that's what caused it. And that's why if you lived in Europe between period X and period B, you actually can't donate blood because of the mad cow disease. And they think prion disease is actually also mildly hereditary.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it literally will erase your brain. It'll rot your brain away.
That's crazy.
Which has a tendency to cause psychosis. So,
if you want to go on the bylaws of the world and the universe and everything, maybe that's a telltale sign of what not to do.
Right.
I mean, I can think of no bigger judgment than if you eat human flesh.
And then it hurts you.
Gluttony or survival, you're going to pay the price for it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, American Indian lore is full of that, of people being
moral legends, moral-based sort of warnings and whatnot.
Because even the not just the Wendigo, but even the Skinwalker is a human that is so deranged due to what they've done that they've lost all sense of their humanity and just became feral, for a lack of words.
That's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's, didn't mean to get into this, but
the whole thing actually totally reminds me of something though. Like, I have heard stories my entire life about, and this is kind of a little haha. People go to visit the Hawaiian Islands, and there are free roaming chickens in the Hawaiian Islands. And apparently these free roaming chickens very, very much enjoy eating chicken.
Yeah.
I wonder if it affects them.
I don't know. To be fair, listen.
Chickens are crazy. Anyways.
FYI, I'm not a brain doctor, right?
No.
Same.
All I know is, like, I do know that there are species that it affects more than others. I know prion disease is a mad cow disease. It affects humans as well. That does not mean I can go down and give you a list of species that prion.
Right. I don't.
But you know about
it. I just know those 2 cases. Well, shout out to a podcast that I listen to all the time called Scary Interesting. He was talking about a guy that had lived with a tribe in, like, it was either like Northern Australia or like Papua New Guinea or something. And like his survival counted on that, but he ran into like a cannibalistic tribe. And that's how the conversation dwindled down to like prions disease, and it's called kuru.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's the same thing. It eats your brain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's...
And it literally, so if you do it for long enough, it's fatal. It will kill you.
That's crazy.
And that's the thing, is it's a bylaw of the universe. Like, don't do this.
Or else. Yeah.
You will face dire consequences.
Real.
So
listen, no matter what your
Facts.
belief system is, if you don't believe in a higher power, something is telling you if you eat another person, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And your brain's going to rot.
That's what you're not supposed to do.
All right, if you want to go to the belief aspect, like every belief system in the world, be it Christianity, voodoo, not so much voodoo, but Christianity, Catholicism, Druidism.
I mean, that's a
what the Viking
Cain and Abel story waiting to happen, right?
Well, he didn't eat him; he just killed him. But no, it's still that everybody has that same as like you don't eat human flesh; you just don't do it.
Huge stigma.
Yeah, and I even think voodoo may have something like that. To not eat of the flesh of the human.
I don't honestly.
I'm not sure. I would say voodoo people reach out, but you're good.
Unless you want to. Listen, we're not saying we don't want to hear from you. We're just saying
to better understand.
We're saying we're a little timid of your religion.
It's not our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Listen, I know there are good voodoo practitioners, and I know that everybody knows about voodoo black magic.
Sure,
right?
Sure. But I would absolutely love to know a lot more about their religion. You know, the practices and the beliefs that go along with it, because I find all that kind of stuff very interesting. I want to know everybody's perspective, not just my own.
Right. Well, I mean, that's how you go and grow as a person, is learning from all the different sides and perspectives. But
agreed.
Back to the topic at hand, not the psychological thriller that we're on.
Before we get back on topic, I'm going to continue one more thing with the derailment, is I do want to throw out a proper shout out to Scary Interesting. It is a podcast that you can listen to, or you can go on YouTube and watch the video version of it. They do have the audio only version as well. You can listen to it on Spotify or pretty much anywhere that you hear your podcasts.
Apple Music.
And it is in fact Scary Interesting. It is a phenomenal podcast. I really like the guy who tells the stories. I think that he puts them together very well. He has a lot of his facts and history put together very well. It's pretty fabulous. I love it personally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of podcasts out there that are like that. They're Scary Interesting is actually an accurate name for a lot of them.
Well, to be fair, like, I will just give a very brief summary of like his isn't really a paranormal podcast. It is a like cases of missing people, like accidental deaths, like as close as you can get to paranormal stuff without actually being paranormal is kind of what
that's true.
Like
cave mining disasters, diving disasters.
Yeah, and then we come in after.
Trip and camping disasters. Like he had a beautiful episode on the Dyatlov Pass. Loved it. He really does a great job.
So worth a listen.
Yeah. Shout out. All about shouting out other podcasts.
I don't even know if he hears us to know we're shouting him out. Maybe I should message him one day.
Yeah, no. So like,
hey, we shout you out. Give us some.
Yeah.
I would say the closest popular podcast that I can like tell you it's kind of on the same level with is if you've ever listened to the podcast Lore with Aaron Mankey. Like, it's very much it's real close to the paranormal, right? But it's mostly like historic stories, like this happened, and it's telling the facts. It's not coming at it from a paranormal aspect,
right?
But a lot of it kind of sidewinds back and forth into the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, even getting on the like, I know we're derailing a little bit, but even getting on the paranormal side of it is like you have to do that kind of stuff in order to find out what's the truth. So you have to rule out every other aspect of it in order to find the truth. So, yeah.
Which is, I think, how our conversation devolved from Wendigos to cannibalism, which is the Wendigo thing, to prions disease. Like, this is the scientific reasoning for it. Yeah.
Welcome to our conversations and
this
all
is
that.
Why?
But no,
it's not eat people.
It's to find out the truth behind something that you see. Everybody can just go to Google and look shit up. Like anybody can do that. We live in the age of information that is readily available for us to do. But how many people actually look up the reasons why something happens the way it happens? That's investigating 101.
Agreed.
So this is the technical, I don't even want to call it a definition, but so prions themselves are infectious proteins that can cause normal brain proteins to misfold, leading to the formations of clumps that damage brain tissue.
Interesting.
Which is, yeah. So if you eat the wrong proteins, hence human flesh, it will cause your proteins to fuck up.
Yeah. Like, hey, that's not normal. You shouldn't be here.
Right. The last thing that I'm going to say about Wendigos before I move on is some talks about them in popular culture of the 20th and 21st century. So obviously they've been like in video games. So like Until Dawn is a big one.
I didn't even know that was a. I've never played it. So
there is one called The Wendigo. The Evil Within is a big one. These are video games that feature Wendigo folklore and portray them as, crazy, terrifying creatures.
What was the movie we watched too?
Wendigo?
No.
Antlers.
Antlers, I think.
Yeah, there was a movie that I don't think it was
on Fandango. I know because I bought it.
Yeah, I don't think that it was like one of those, A-rated multi-billion-dollar films, but it was pretty damn good. It was called Antlers. I'm not going to tell you what it was about, but obviously a Wendigo was the main character. But it had a good story. It was very entertaining. I liked it a lot. Also with television, Wendigos obviously have appeared in shows like Supernatural or Hannibal or books in Stephen King's Pet Sematary. They were featured, the idea of Wendigos were that they were malevolent spirits. By the way, if you haven't read Pet Sematary, it's a phenomenal read.
Sorry, guys, I'm hiccuping.
Stephen King does have a tendency to be a little long-winded, much like myself.
Hello, Anne Rice.
Oh, I love her so much, yes, but a little long-winded. Yeah.
I do want to kind of touch on something, though, because you brought it up with the video games.
Mm-hmm.
And we've mentioned movies of these Wendigos and all that other stuff. With it becoming so prevalent, and this kind of leads me into something I kind of want to discuss a little bit, with the all of that becoming prevalent and being a lot more out there than it used to be in the past. Because it used to be specific to cultures. Those are the only people who heard it. So when sellers come over here, they're like, what? What's a Wendigo?
Yeah, what?
Is this desensitizing us to all that?
Absolutely. I think so.
So with it, people see it. They used to be scared to death of it, and now they're curious by it.
Right.
So are we playing into these things' hands?
Oh,
You're welcome, Alex.
Human nature in general, I think, is to be curious.
Seek and be curious.
Right. As opposed to fearful.
To leadership principle.
But one thing that's important to remember is that fear is your body's natural response to something that not just something it doesn't understand, but something that your body instinctually understands that it cannot fight and win.
Right. But what I'm saying is the fear factor is going away.
And being replaced with the curiosity.
Yes.
Yeah.
To where now, and we talked about that on that one episode of Expedition X, where they actually cut, like, if you haven't seen it, go watch it, because if they actually got the footage that I think it is, they actually caught a Bigfoot real time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the characters in it, or one of the guys that is in it, saw this thing and rushed towards it. And we had a debate here of, like, would somebody actually do that? Like, if you literally saw it,
yeah, that
10 yards away from
wasn't Expedition X. What's that show called? Is it? It's not Finding Bigfoot. It's
Expedition Bigfoot, I think.
Expedition Bigfoot.
Yeah. Would you actually do that? Would you run towards a giant 10-foot creature covered in fur that could tear your arms off? Would you actually run towards it?
Well, listen here. On the same aspect of what I think you're trying to get across right now, I am down with, reading folklore books about Wendigos, watching cool movies about Wendigos, playing video games that have them in it. Hell, I'd even play a D&D character that was something like that. That'd be super cool, right?
Right.
I'm a ghost hunter. I like to go out and hunt ghosts. I'm not looking for something that can kill me.
Right.
Facts.
And kind of where I was going with it, but also, like, are they becoming more prevalent now because we have lost the fear of them?
Well, if you were
meaning not in pop culture or anything, but in real life.
We did have that group of folks who had contacted us. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about this. They had suggested that they were hearing and seeing something that they believed to be a Wendigo.
Or a skinwalker.
Or potentially a skinwalker, they said. And I mean, really, I think that all of us were very intrigued by it and all of us were very curious by it. But at the bottom line at the end of the day was that is above my pay grade. I am perfectly happy investigating ghosts all day long. When it comes to something like demons or
Not doing it.
Wendigo or skinwalkers, things that I know I have no chance at defending myself against.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm gonna stay home.
Well, okay, hold on. And I'm playing devil's advocate here, so forgive me. We also hunt Bigfoot.
We do.
That can that could literally kill us.
But one thing that I can tell you is if that I actually felt like I was in danger, chances are really good I would kick my heels up and be long fucking gone.
Yeah, I was about to say Roadrunner.
Yes.
That happened.
I have been the Roadrunner.
she took off. So, but again, I'm making light of it. But are they coming out more now because you see more of it? And is it just the age of information and more things are coming out about them? Or are they actually coming out of the dark? Because we are not scared of them anymore. We are more curious about them, and that feeds into everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say this in as nice a way that I can put it. I believe that the desensitization comes from the overall moralistic views of humanity nowadays versus the way it was.
Yeah.
I actually like the way you said that, and I think that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that a moral compass has been skewed somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
Let's literally look at, basic, without getting into weird sciences or political beliefs, we have a giant floating garbage dump in the ocean right now.
Yeah.
And you know what? Nobody's going to stop using plastic bags.
Nope.
Nobody's going to, celebrities aren't going to stop flying on private jets. And I'm not saying it's...
Yeah. Yeah.
I am not involving climate in that talk at all. I'm just saying we trash the earth, and eventually she's just going to take it back.
So are you saying... Wait, hold up. Are you saying that these things are a byproduct of the earth taking it back?
I'm a big believer in Gaia. I'm the druid, remember? I'm a big believer in Gaia.
Yeah.
And she's going to take it back.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm praying for rain.
I mean, I don't know that I believe that these things are a product of the earth directly fighting back against us.
Well, no, that's what he was saying, so.
I think that these things were here anyhow. And I do 100% believe that the earth at some point is going to just simply take back what belongs to it. We have ice ages. They are a recorded thing long before human history began, and they will be here long before human history is ended.
Just remember, we're the parasite living on this world.
That's exactly correct. And the earth has cleansed itself before. And it will do it again. That's just the natural order of things.
Biblical history, that's true.
Facts. Facts. It's true. It's true biblically, and it's true scientifically. We've seen this stuff happen in our fossil record and Earth's record. This is real. That, however, in my opinion, is not even remotely paranormal. It's scientific fact.
That leads me to my next discussion, because you touched on it a little bit, saying that the moral compass has been skewed. There are bylaws within this world, universal bylaws, not constitutional, not states, not anything of that we can see or even read. But there are laws within the universe. Since those are being broken now on a regular basis, are things turning the page?
Potentially.
And now this probably got a lot deeper than what we probably wanted it to. But is it because we are breaking those laws now, going with the Gaia aspect, destroying the earth, going with the religious aspect of going against God's plan, going with the scientific aspect of ruining the thing by non-climate control? We are doing all the things to break all of those laws. Is what's happening a result of that? Are these Wendigos, Bigfoots, spirits, everything else coming out more now because, and I'm holding up my phone, we have more access to the information than we used to? Or is it because our moral compass is off and now is a better time to invade?
If I was to...
We are more vulnerable spiritually and morally than we ever have been.
Yeah, I mean, there's... Good job, Matt.
That was me. Sorry.
No. What I would say to that is that I think it's both, right? And shit, my head lost track of its place.
That happens to me a lot, actually.
I think that shit. You know what? Just start
About
talking.
the moral compass that is skewed and the things are turning the page now because we're breaking the bylaws. And
I consider it kind of a snowball effect, right? And just no matter which religion you look at, and I consider myself pretty druidic. And Irish druid stuff has nothing to do with Wendigos. However, we have our forest protectors,
Right.
and they wouldn't, by definition, be considered fae or cryptid or folklore or myth, and every culture has that. All of them.
Yeah.
So, how do I put this nicely? When all the gods gang up against you, maybe you're wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, for all intents and purposes, you're not wrong in that assessment. So,
and this is what I want to say to anybody practicing any religion whatsoever. Be careful your interpretations. You should look at your interpretations through a wider angle lens and not an individualistic lens. Well,
yeah, don't make it fit you.
I don't like this, so my gods probably think this. Well, no, maybe they're mad at you.
No,
because
maybe they say exactly what they mean.
when you assess something through a lens, you should always be in the picture, I guess is what I'll say.
Oh, yeah, it's the old adage. When you point a finger at somebody, you got 3 pointing back at you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
but that said, to go on to the wider point, I believe it's a snowball effect. Like, once that snowball has crested the hill and it starts rolling down, like, shit gets bigger and bigger. And you're right regarding the more we start seeing this shit. I hate to say it, but the more the world turns to shit, like, the more of this shit we start. And maybe it's because some of us are looking for it. And I don't mean looking for it as in, like, I'm going to the woods to look for a Wendigo. I was saying looking for it is in distractions, like anything from the moral dullness of life. Like, I don't know
I get what you mean. The mundane and kept down, like going to work, waking up, going to work, come home, sleep to go to work again. The rat routine.
Yeah, the rat race, exactly.
Well, the irony is, if I'm going to go back to my druid ways, when Gaia says I'm taking stuff back, problem is when I try to get away from work, it's because I'm going to the woods. So that means I'm going to see a lot more of this shit, a lot more.
Valid.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
So, beyond, and I'm getting a little bit back on track here, beyond the Wendigo.
Were we off track? This is a roundtable, baby.
Native American cultures have an incredibly rich and diverse collection of myths and legends and tales and whatnot. Another one that I really like that is very, very high on the popularity list is the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird, it's a legendary creature. It is in mythology, mainly lots of different Native American cultures, but the big ones are the Ojibwe, the Navajo, and the Lakota. It is a massive bird, supposedly having the power to create thunderstorms and lightning simply by flapping its wings and flying.
Right.
It is often seen as a symbol of strength, power, and protection. It's considered a spiritual force, and it can protect against evil spirits or enemies, living enemies. There are lots of stories about times when people believe that they have seen an actual living Thunderbird. Lots of good
Didn't
ones.
they call it the Great Spirit?
Yes, it was called the Great Spirit.
I know that's because part Indian.
Exactly. I think all three of us have got some Native American heritage.
Cherokee
Also.
Sioux.
Mm-hmm. So we weren't friends, which is weird.
It explains my temper.
It does. 100%.
I've got Irish and Sioux Indian.
Yeah, he's a little
to be fair, I think we were also all in vastly different regions, so it's not exactly like we were enemies. We just weren't friends.
We didn't ever encounter each other. Exactly. So, what are some stories that y'all can recall hearing about the Thunderbird?
Oh, I can recall it firsthand hearing some of my relatives talk about it out there in Arizona.
Ooh, yeah.
One, it was my uncle who actually said it. He lived out in Kingman, and he has since passed away, God rest his soul. But he was sitting on his back porch one day. And like I said, I don't know how many greats it is, but my great-grandmother was Chief Sitting Bull's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have that lineage within me. But he was sitting on his back porch one day, just kind of having a little drink. And he wasn't a big drinker. He actually quit drinking, but every once in a while he'd like to have a nightcap. And I say this because I want to preface it saying that he was not drunk while doing this, but he was just sitting on his back porch having a little nightcap, smoking, and happened to see this gigantic bird flying up in, because his is actually beautiful. His back porch looked over like this. I want to call it a mountain, but in Arizona, it's not a mountain. It's kind of more like a sand hill, but it looked like a mountain.
Nice.
And he saw this gigantic bird. And when I say gigantic, I'm not meaning like a big ass friggin' falcon.
Yeah.
No, this encompassed half of the sand hill mountain. And my uncle wasn't the type to smoke weed or anything, but he said it was a huge, huge bird. And it scared him to the point to where he ran inside and never went back. Yeah. It was Thomas.
It was Thomas.
No, he said it actually scared him to the point, and he said it was followed by a thunderstorm.
Really?
Yes.
Now, see, that for me would be the ultimate sighting.
Yeah.
Seeing one of these things either directly prior to or during a thunderstorm.
And, everybody, every time I tell that story, I get the question like, oh, how come he didn't take a picture? Man, he's 67 years old. It was before the time of cell phones. His first instinct is not to grab his cell phone and snap a picture.
I don't think any of our first instincts is to do that, honestly.
No, his first instinct is to get the fuck off the porch.
Right.
You know what? This is what I'll say. I think there are those people whose first instinct on everything would be to grab their phone. But this is what I'll also say to give you an example of who we are and what generation we grew up in. I think we are a dying breed, a dying generation. Yeah. Our first instinct to experience whatever we're experiencing. Quick story time. Joe and I sat on my front porch. Joe and I were getting drunk in 4K. Absinthe.
Yeah.
Joe and I watched a 350-pound white dude bicycle down the middle of Broad Street in Wadsworth with an American flag cape in his underwear.
Yeah.
Whitey tighties even.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, there's nothing more that I would have loved to have than a photograph of that moment. It was the furthest thing from my mind.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I think we both had to look at it 3 times to verify that's what we were seeing.
Yeah. No, because it was one of those things where I saw it go down the hill, and then I looked at you, looked back at it, looked at you again.
Like, what the hell?
You see this shit?
That really happened?
I mean, bonus points for the American flag cape. That's special.
And here's the weird part. It wasn't even on a holiday. It wasn't 4th of July.
It was a random Saturday night.
Hey, you know what I didn't even think of? Maybe he was doing like a kid's party or something. He was Captain Underpants.
No.
Maybe.
No, this dude was, no.
Maybe he was that dwarf we rescued from that.
No, but that's the thing is, when he saw that bird, like, and when he was telling me about it, it wasn't just an old timer telling the story.
Yeah.
Like, I could see the look on his face, the goosebumps on his skin when he was talking about it, how he reacted when he told me about it, the validity behind his voice and saying it. All the telltale signs that you're looking for if somebody's actually lying to you.
Real fear was showing in him.
Yes. And he was not joking whatsoever. And he said, I literally saw that exploded bird. Because he said as soon as he closed the door, he heard a loud clap of thunder.
No kidding.
And then it started raining.
Here's the interesting thing, right? And I think it also kind of gives a little picture into our mindset. There's a lot of times where I see something that piques my interest or something like that. And I feel like by the time that I look away and then get back to it, it'll just be gone. So I would rather just take it in.
Right.
It's the same reason I ghost hunt, all right? I'm going to be honest. I love sharing my stories with you guys. I love sharing my stories with the world or anybody that'll listen, all right? But honestly, first and foremost, I do it for me.
Right.
Agreed. I agree with that. And I feel the same exact way. I do this because I truly love the research. I truly love the topic. And I truly love just hanging around this table shooting shit with you guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the purpose of the roundtable and the whole reason behind the start of this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for instance, how many times, Joe, did you and I literally end up like So to be fair, back when we smoked cigarettes, we always went outside on the porch to smoke.
Yeah.
So how many times did we just leave our cell phones on the counter in the house
And
while we
not
ran out to have a
even-
cigarette?
yeah.
It
No,
wasn't it shit like that's an afterthought for us. So I would rather see it and take it in for all of it is than worry about running in the house and let's grab something I can take a picture with.
I agree with
and to be fair, like I attribute to that's not just something we grew up with. We didn't constantly have our phones on us all the time to where we're on them all the time. That's just a generation we grew up in. And to be fair, they didn't really have them. They didn't actually have cell phones. Didn't actually come out until I was in my 20s, I believe.
Yeah, I mean,
God.
we had. Well, here's the thing. Definitely not cell phones with cameras.
No.
Like my first cell phone was a broken ass candy bar cell phone that had an Atari Snake game on it. It didn't have apps, all right, and it didn't even have a camera until like 15 years later.
Yeah, no, my first cell phone was a Nokia, and it wasn't mine; it was my dad's. I went to a party, and he's like, "I don't want you to go and be left without a way to contact us. Here's my work cell phone." And it was a Nokia, and there was nothing on. There was no camera, no nothing. So it was just a very small LED screen that it only had room for the numbers. So
my first experience with a cell phone, Joe, yours is probably somewhat similar, and we only had one because my dad was a truck driver. All right. So I think it was 96 or 97 when he got his first cell phone. And it was literally like one of those like bag briefcase phones.
The car mounted bad boys.
And it wasn't for the house. It was literally for him to take on the road with him. And that was it. So like that was, so to give you an example, that was in 97. I graduated in 99. All right.
yeah, same.
Like I graduated with a pager.
Yep.
That was about as in touch with our family as we got. We stopped at the corner, used the quarter pay phone, and called home if somebody buzzed us.
I never owned a pager.
I did. And I was confused as shit about it because I'm like, how do I know who called me? Because I'd always put like 911 if it was an emergency. I'm like, I don't know who left.
Now I don't know who you are.
This might well be an emergency.
There's an emergency somewhere. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know who to call. And I only got one quarter on me. So, and now I don't even carry cash. So, but no, going back on it, like seeing those kind of things like that, like the Thunderbird or the Wendigo or anything like that, it's such an odd experience. Even Bigfoot and all that, it's such an odd experience that you're not thinking to grab your cell phone real quickly to take a picture because you're too busy trying to figure out, is what I'm seeing actually what I'm seeing?
Yeah, you're trying to process shit that should not exist.
Yes, in your mind, yes. But, and this is what this kind of goes back into what I was talking about a little bit. With us doing this, we know it exists in our mind. So when we see it, is it cognitive to us understanding what we're seeing? Is it quicker than someone who doesn't believe it?
Right.
And take that time to process what they're seeing as us. We've seen it. We're like, oh yeah, that's Jake.
From State Farm.
I would say yes and no because how do I put this? Cognitive dissonance is a little bit different. All right. It's not so much I don't believe that thing actually exists as much as my brain's like, I don't know if I believe that I'm actually seeing that for real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's similar but different than.
Yeah, no, I get you. But no, I've seen people even out ghost hunting where we take people to the woods and all that, and they see something, and the look on their face is in utter disbelief or scared shitless. There's no in between.
Almost never.
Admittedly, I miss that feeling to an extent.
Oh, same.
It kind of goes back to the desensitization talk, right? Like, most of y'all would never believe this. I grew up afraid of the dark.
Oh, I believe it. I've seen you move in the dark.
All right.
Right.
So I've gone from afraid of the dark to now it can be the middle of the night. We go out with an inexperienced group that wants to investigate a cemetery, and like I'll lay down on a tomb and take a nap. Like I don't. I'm desensitized to that. You know what I mean?
Well, and this kind of goes back on my Native American thing. With their lore becoming so out there now, And I'm not meaning out there in the realm of possibilities, but like their lore is known to everyone now besides them.
Yeah, exposure.
Is that changing the Native American culture?
It's hard to say from a standpoint of them themselves.
Well,
you know
obviously
what I mean?
we can't answer it because we're white people.
Yeah, I can't answer for people. But what I will say is, and again, getting close to wrap up time, what I will say is this, in accordance with not only Native American culture, but every culture, but we'll focus on Native Americans for the point of this roundtable.
Right.
I don't think that it is changing the culture so much as people forgetting the original reasons that these stories were told.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
These stories were always told to convey a message, like things to respect, things to be afraid of, things to be, proud of.
They aren't carrying that same moral flow that they used to, that they were intended to.
Yeah.
And again, that is stories of cultures across the globe. It's not singled out to natives, but it definitely encompasses them. Like all of these folklore stories, all of the Appalachia folklore that we talk about on the podcast.
No, didn't.
You're right. No, we didn't. That came over from the Irish. That all of it. Like these stories were told for a purpose back then, and it seems like over time people have just stopped listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And here's actually the last little bit that I want to share about this, because this is, to me, an important one. The white buffalo woman.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that everybody has heard about the Native American legend of the white buffalo.
Yep.
In the Lakota Sioux tradition, the white buffalo woman is a sacred figure. She brought the sacred pipe, or the peace pipe, to the people and taught them how to live in harmony with nature through the visions that they would experience through the peace pipe. And her appearance is directly associated with the idea of rebirth of the world and recoming of a time of peace. And the white buffalo itself, when a white buffalo calf is born, it is seen as a prophetic event, fulfilling the prophecy of this as the rebirth and the coming together of people and harmony with nature. And the most recent event, 1994, there was a birth of a white buffalo calf in Wisconsin.
I was going to say, I remember that happening sometime in like the late 80s or early 90s.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't remember the exact date, but
yeah, it was in 94.
I remember the last time it was a big deal.
And, let that remind us all, I guess, to be one with the world around us and, leave things the way that you found them.
Or better if you can.
Or better if you can, exactly. This goes right along with everything that we have always preached about history and respecting culture and respecting the places and the people who we investigate as paranormal investigators. And this, I think it just goes hand in hand, really. It's all very related to spiritualism, and I just think it's really cool.
Yeah. All right.
Agreed.
There we go. Yeah, we're all going to be in agreement with that. So you said it's getting on a... Yeah, probably, I know. So you said it was getting on a thick sode? Or closing time?
It's getting on closing time.
Closing
One last call.
So, I don't do that anymore. I'm out before 10. So with that said, I think we've exhausted it. So why not head on with the socials?
Absolutely. Hit us up. Share your stories. We want to hear everything that you have to say. Want to hear about whether or not you've experienced any of these creatures, Wendigos or skinwalkers or Thunderbirds or any other thing. It doesn't actually even have to be Native American culture. I also want to know if you have ever visited the white buffalo calf, and is he as cute as I think he is from TV? You can find us at No Lights Paranormal on Facebook, No Lights Paranormal on YouTube, No Lights Para, P-A-R-A, on X, No Lights Paranormal on LinkedIn, and of course you can always email us or contact us at nolightsparanormal@gmail.com.
Yep.
All right. We love you. We hope we fixed your moral compass a little bit, or if you didn't have a bad one to begin with, then good. Keep on keeping on.
Kudos.
That's right. Keep on keeping on.
That said, don't fuck with Mother Earth or the Baba Yaga.
You keep on keeping on.
Yep.